Morning, everyone. So, we're going to talk about the Tory party conference. I was going to talk about something different. There was, we'll put the microphone there. There was something quite interesting yesterday regarding water companies, a letter from Ofwat. And I thought, I will talk about that because this is quite intriguing. I have put a link in the description below if anyone now is intrigued by this. Um, but then I was noting some things down. I thought, it's a bit warm. I'm getting a bit hot here. It's been quite cold recently. What's going on? I had a look around and the Tory party was on fire. So I thought we'd spend half an hour ridiculing the Tories after their conference. So, well, we're halfway through their conference. So what's happened in a nutshell? How do we go through this? Because there's so many things. Like beforehand, as we got ready for the conference, we knew that the rebels were descending on it. Right? We knew that there's various factions in the Tory party all splitting themselves up, and we knew that they were all going there to try to pressure Jeremy Hunt or Rishi Sunak or both of them into various things, whether it be tax cuts or whether it be more on the culture wars or whatever it happens to be. And all these different groups, there's even a new group now, a brand new group, the New Conservatives. So we knew all that. What we didn't know is how much of an impact they would have. Well, it's actually been absolutely phenomenal. As you can see on the thumbnail I had, right? The main hall where the cabinet ministers, the people who are actually driving Conservative Party policy, were speaking, and hardly anyone there. Now, on the Sunday, I'm going to say this, on the Sunday, people were ridiculing it for the fact that there was hardly anyone in the halls. And I will say there were train strikes because the Conservatives have sort of annoyed rail workers. So there's train strikes for the first day of the conference and the last day of the conference. So you could say, well, maybe a lot of people just, couldn't really get the train. So they're just, not going to go on that Sunday. That wouldn't have applied on the Monday, really. Yesterday, there's still people not turning up to listen to the speeches of the cabinet ministers. Now, I'm just going to show you something here as well, which is quite intriguing. So this is Mark Harper, the Transport Secretary. You can see loads of empty seats. But what you can also, someone's putting a red arrow there. That is to someone taking a photo. Now look at where they're taking the photo. You can see on the right-hand side, the people who have turned up, they've got them all to sit together so that that fella in front of the stage is taking a photo to make it look like there's loads of people there. But of course, from this angle, we can see, no, there's not. You've just shepherded them together to make it look like that. And this was yesterday, and this was the Transport Secretary. HS2, big news. Rishi Sunak still not saying what his decision is. He's still not even saying if he's made a decision, even though the Chancellor's spokesperson said that a decision had been made. It's all getting very confused. But you would think delegates would turn up to listen to the Transport Secretary, given that HS2 is big news. No. Steve Kirk there, £10 super chat. Thank you very much. Says, getting so bad my popcorn is getting burnt. Yes, it's quite remarkable. But the thing is, so all of Sunday and yesterday, when there was no train strike, the movers and shakers, the main events, are not getting people turning up. But then Liz Truss being absolutely mobbed. Now, I should have made copies of all the photos of the various things. But there were various journalists taking photos of the queue leading up to her speech. And I don't just mean the Tory client media. So, there were people like Adam BM covered Byline Times there and like Beth Rigby and people like that. People who they're not going to like falsify things. So there were huge queues to get in to listen to the speech it wasn't just Liz Truss, to be fair. There was Priti Patel. Nigel Farage turned up, but he wasn't speaking. He'll have been there as like a media person. Although there's some video. Oh, do you know, it's actually quite, I'm not going to show you because you might have to wash your eyes afterwards. There's a video of Priti Patel and Nigel Farage dancing last night. Graham's just spat his tea out. But nonetheless, this event that Liz Truss was speaking at was absolutely mobbed. And people are getting selfies with Liz Truss, with Nigel Farage, and the tax pledge. Now, the tax pledge is quite an interesting one. So there's this tax pledge being signed by some Tory MPs, and it pledges to not vote for the budget if it doesn't contain what they want it to contain on various tax issues. They seem to be inconsistent about what that is. Now, at the weekend, there were 33 Tory MPs who'd signed it, including Liz Truss. Now it's up to 60, we're told. So what that means is, if when the budget comes, now there's a budget statement this autumn, but that doesn't get voted, that's just a statement. The budget is announced in March, and then the budget is implemented in April. Now, that budget has to be voted on. So if these 60 Tory MPs look at it and go, oh, well, there's tax rises, and there will be tax rises. There will absolutely be tax rises. So if they look at it, oh, there's tax rises here. Sorry, we pledged not to vote for tax rises. Then if 60 of them abstain, in theory, the budget could still fail, but it probably wouldn't. But if they vote against it, then the budget can absolutely fail. If they vote, or even if the bulk of them actively vote against it. Now, it's a big thing to vote against, but you'd think this tax pledge means that they'll probably be abstaining. That would be the implication, because it's a big thing to vote against your own party's budget. For a start, Rishi Sunak can and probably should remove the whip from all of them. In fact, that's something he could say, because I will say the problem is he's too weak, isn't he? Would you believe he'll do it? Because I have seen, he was asked today, are you worried about these 60 Conservatives who are promising to sort of not back your budget in March or next year if it doesn't do what they say it does? And he said, and I quote, "No, not at all. Lots of Conservatives here. I think the mood is great. People are excited about the things we're doing." Well, they're clearly not, because they're not turning up to listen to it. People are not turning up to listen to the cabinet ministers who are talking about all the great things they're doing. But, and the mood, there is a good mood there, but not if you're Rishi Sunak. But the fact that he says he's not worried makes me wonder, is he prepared? Either, does he already plan to call a general election before then, in which case maybe that's why he's not worried? Is he just lying? Because he does tend to lie a bit. Or is he actually thinking to himself, well, I'll just remove, if they don't vote for the budget, it's a reasonable thing with a budget, 3-line whip, which is you get yourself to Parliament and you will vote for this, otherwise trouble. And he could just say, well, I'll remove the whip. Boris Johnson did something similar in 2019. Rishi Sunak could do it now. One Angry Pagan, £2 super chat. Thank you very much. Will this make Labour look even more disciplined? Yes. It cannot fail. Like the news coming out of this it's chaotic on multiple. Right. Let me go through the various layers of chaos. So first of all, you've got photo evidence of people not turning up to the main events to listen to members of the government, but you've got people absolutely mobbing the fringe events where extremists are talking. Jacob Rees-Mogg's doing another talk today. He'll probably get loads of people coming up there. Then you've got another layer of chaos in the HS2. It's been reported for some time now that they're going to chop the Manchester leg, and also probably not even guarantee that it's going to go into central London. So we don't really know what's going on there. Now, that's chaotic. This is the party conference. This is where you announce policies. You're supposed to announce your policies. Rishi Sunak cannot even say what his policy is. Some people are saying that the decision's been made and they haven't said it yet. Rishi Sunak's trying to say haven't even made the decision yet. It's a complete shambles. But then there's the next level, which is the 20-mile-an-hour wedge issue that they're trying to create, which is a complete disaster. I mean, I said straight away, Conservative councils like that policy. They do it themselves. They've done it for years. The first 20-mile-an-hour zone came in. I looked it up. Came in this country in 1991. It's been around for decades, absolutely decades. But then look at this. Where is it? So, being reported, Rishi Sunak's own Tory-run North Yorkshire Council is expanding 20-mile-an-hour zones, arguing they're safer. North Yorkshire Council, which is a Conservative council, may not be for much longer if they keep screwing farmers over. Arguing, and this is the thing: there are conservative councils who want the 20-mile-an-hour zones because they are safer. Their local residents demand them. So he's created a wedge issue, not with Labour, but with his own party. It's absolutely insane. Anyway, we'll catch up with some comments because I want to just point out the Jacob Rees-Mogg thing as well. Paul saying, sorry, the image of Farage and Patel dancers give me PTSD. Well, don't look it up then, whatever you do. Desperate stuff at the conference, selling Starmer flip-flops and making up a meat tax. Well, okay, we'll discuss both of these. So first of all, people have pointed out, I don't think they have Keir Starmer's permission to use his image. Now, obviously, if they use him in some promotional material, like advertisements and stuff like that, campaigning material, then okay, that's okay, because that's fair use. But they have used his image on something that they're selling. That's merchandise, that's commercial. So I wonder if Keir Starmer's just sitting back, waiting for a bit, waiting for them to sell them all, and then going to them, oh, by the way, you seem to have used my image commercially without my permission. Yeah, I'll be taking all your money and donating it to the National Trust or something like that. I think he should. I don't know what the legal situation is on that, but this can't be fair use because they're selling it. They're selling it for personal profit. So I imagine that he will be able to take issue with that. And yet the stuff about making up the meat tax. So this is in reference to a government minister yesterday talking about, Keir Starmer bringing this meat tax. And the journalist, who was it now? I've forgotten. But was it Sophie Ridge? I can't remember. But the journalist in question said, no, Labour, that's not Labour's policy. Keir Starmer hasn't said that. And she was waffling on and waffling on. Eventually, this journalist pinned her down and said, no, this isn't true. And she basically said it's fine to make up lies about Labour policies because Keir Starmer's not being clear about what he would do. And it's like, okay, I mean, it doesn't matter whether you consider it clear or not. You can't just make up, well, they are doing. But it also highlights the fact they've got the next election, if you're in any doubt at all, is going to be incredibly dirty. Consider it was dirty enough in 2019. When the Conservative Party, after a TV debate, they turned their own formal Twitter, the official Conservative Party Twitter, and made it look like a fact-checking website, a fact-checking site. But remember, the Conservatives then were on for a win. They were polling that they were going to win. And that's how dirty they were. Imagine how dirty they're going to be when they're going to lose. It's going to be the election campaign, in fact, all the way now up until the election. But the election campaign itself is going to be, if the polling remains as it is now, it's going to be really unpleasant. I mean, really deeply unpleasant. Anyway, a couple of super chats. John Bull, thank you very much for £5. Would a tax-cutting giveaway budget in March, closely followed by losing the spring election, make life difficult for incoming Labour government? They can't actually have a tax-cutting budget because what they can't do is do what Liz Truss and Kwasi Kwarteng did and have unfunded tax cuts. So they'd have to fund them. How do they fund them? But if they did do that, yes, their budget could make life difficult for Labour, but there comes a point at which Labour would have to say, we need an emergency budget if that's the case. If the budget is a complete pig's ear, Labour will just have to say we need an emergency budget because this is ridiculous. Emma Price, also £5 super chat, thank you. By my reckoning, they were embarrassing themselves, fawning over GB News, unbelievable, so American-esque like Fox. Well, the reason, Liz Truss in her speech, first thing she did, the absolute first thing she did was to say how much she likes GB News, praising it. And you know why that is? She's trying to get platforms. She wants platforms, right? Now, she already has an automatic platform. She is the former Prime Minister. I know that's embarrassing, but she is. But the idea that GB News will enthusiastically promote what she's selling, obviously, she's looking for allies. She's been reported to be having posh dinners with MPs again. She's building up support for another tilt at either we don't know that she definitely wants to go for the leadership next time, but she definitely does want to be involved in policy making. So either she wants to be the power behind the throne or the power on the throne. Rachel James, another £5 super chat. Thank you. What do I think of Steve Barclay's announcement to segregate trans women in hospitals? I'm a trans woman with a FM birth certificate. Absolutely terrified. The extent to which they're trying to divide society. I mean, it's what Tories always do. What I would say is they probably won't. There are, some things that aren't even practical. It's not that I don't think they won't, because they're basically not that as bad as they make themselves out to be. No, they absolutely are. I just don't. Some of the things they're trying to do, they can't do. Like Jeremy Hunt. Yeah, now Jeremy Hunt's speech lasted. He's the Chancellor, by the way. It lasted 15 minutes. It's like, that's bollocks. Some of my videos last 15 minutes. And he's supposed to be talking. He's supposed to be. I mean, he should have been going on for half an hour, 40 minutes or something. But anyway, part of what he did say was, people who can't work are on benefits with medical issues. Basically, he says we should make sure that they have, they should accept medical support to get them into work. Now, there's a couple of things from this. Some people may know Joe Hardy. He's a good Geordie. He's a disability rights campaigner who's got cerebral palsy, and he said, "Look, I was born with cerebral palsy. I'm going to die with cerebral palsy." No, basically no employer, he cannot get like a normal job. It's not that there aren't things he could do, but no employer is going to give him any. There's no sort of job an employer is going to give him, right? But the other thing is, there'll be people who have treatable medical conditions and can't work at the moment who would love some medical help. Where is it? We've got a waiting list that's like, what is it now? 7.5 million or something stupid for elective surgeries. Where is this medical support for people who need help, for people who could, with medical treatment, get back into the workforce? Where is it? They'd be delighted. They'd love it. So there are things, I think, where they might say it, but I don't think they'll do it. And the reason I don't think they'll do it is because they can't. So at the moment, we're just riding this out until the election. And the problem is everyone's doing the same. The Tories are doing the same. The Tories now, they now know they're losing. They 100% know they're losing. All this thing with mobbing Liz Truss, all of it is gearing up for after the election. They're all gearing up for the leadership contest after the election. They all know they're losing. They know it's over. It's finished. It's done. Everyone is just It's like busy time at the end of a school day when the teacher can't be asked with you anymore, right? Just do something for 10 minutes. That doesn't happen, by the way, these days, but it used to. David Parsons, thank you very much. £2 super chat. How do Labour counteract the mass lies? Well, it's interesting you should mention that. The way they do it is with more effective communications. We're doing a bit of a talk on that next week, in fact. Funny you should ask. So I will just remind people, as that is a very good point to bring it up. Next week, if anyone is in Liverpool, we're doing 2 events specifically on social media. On the Monday, outside of the conference, it's a venue called Camp and Furnace. At 5 p.m. on Monday, we're doing one. So it'll be Graham, myself, Tan, Femi, and Marina Perkis. And then on the Tuesday at 2 p.m. inside the conference, so you'd have to be a delegate to be able to see that, we're doing one specifically tied to Labour, social media and Labour, myself, Graham, and Tan. But that is how they do it. Because I remember in 2017, right? So the Tories were telling lies again, because they do. That's what they do. And Jeremy Corbyn complained to Number 10 because Theresa May was coming out with lies. And he said, is she allowed to tell these lies? And Number 10 basically said to Jeremy Corbyn, it's up to you to counter the lies. In other words, as far as they were concerned, bear in mind they're run by Theresa May at the time, but as far as they were concerned, it's your problem, you sort it out. So yes, Labour need to counter it with better communications. They need to call out the lies. Now, I would say at the moment, you could argue, in fact, Graham's just posted a link to where you could get the tickets from if you are in Liverpool next Monday. You know, Labour are going to win the next election because the Tories are just in free fall. You know, we're in a situation now. I don't know when Rishi Sunak plans to have the general election. Maybe he's just doing it reactively. Maybe he's already decided. Who knows? But if there's a serious plan to block the budget in March, then that threatens his entire government. You know, so he needs to. And the indiscipline could just fall further and further and further and further and further. So they're going to win the next election, but Labour need to have their eye on the future. And the thing with building up communication networks, you can't do what Labour do and just turn it on when it comes to campaign time. You have to build up. You have to build up like an audience. You have to build up people who will watch. It takes time. So they actually need to be building those communications up for when the elections are going to get tougher and when the lies are going to, because the lies are actually easier for the Tories when they're in opposition. Because at the moment, it's quite difficult. Because if the Tories say, oh, this is the way in which we should be doing things, it'll be like, well, you've had 13 years to do them. Why didn't you do them then? You know, you can say that. When they've been in opposition, when they've been in opposition for 5 or 10 years, and they've got a completely new front bench, all of the current clowns are gone, because there'll come a point where Liz Truss and Suella Braverman and Kemi Badenoch even, they're all gone to be replaced by, because as soon as they work out that the people who were part of the government are toxic and they need to clean them out and get rid of and just have a fresh lineup, as soon as they realize that, then they'll have they'll be able to tell the lies much more easily. They'll say, well, we should do this. And it won't matter. They'll be saying the same things that Liz Truss and Priti Patel and Jacob Rees-Mogg were saying. It'll be different people saying it. And because they're not in government, you can't turn around and say, well, why didn't you then? It says, well, we were in charge then. If we were in charge, we would have done that and it had all been fine. Scar asking, Phil, isn't it possible that all the don't know voters will come out the shadows at the last minute and vote during the election? No, not all of them. I did a video on this yesterday. So for some of them will, but there are also some people who are saying they don't know who they'll vote for and they'll vote Labour tactically to get rid of the Tories. And I did show in a video on my channel last night, a poll by Survation, where they specifically asked the don't knows. So if you did vote, are you prepared to vote for this party or not? And they did that for the 4 main parties in England. And more people said they were prepared to vote for Labour than the Conservatives. Now, I did say in the video, that doesn't say how strongly they think that. It might be that the ones who would vote Tory feel more strongly that they want to resist a new government than those who want to get rid of it. But I don't believe that. I believe that right now it's really hard to identify anyone having a good reason to still back the Conservatives. Because let's say you're a low tax, small state Tory. Well, how are you going to support what's going on now? Let's say you're just a pragmatic voter who thinks the Conservatives run the economy well. Well, the economy is in the doldrums. Let's say you're just someone who didn't think Labour were providing a credible alternative. Well, that's not the case now. You know, whatever reason you had for voting Conservative in the past is now gone. The only Conservative voters left are those who are just completely down the rabbit hole, fixed Conservative voters. Well, Angry Peg, another £2 super chat. Thank you very much. Mick Lynch liking Labour's New Deal for workers. Yes, but you know, at the same time, at the moment, Mick Lynch is mostly famous for still sticking by Brexit. So you know, he's not exactly my favourite person because he has actually been instrumental in reducing workers' rights. So this New Deal for workers, which does include a lot of new rights, nonetheless, part of it is also having to reverse a lot of the damage that he did to workers' rights. But unions, by and large, not just affiliated unions, are actually quite happy. Some of them are still chuntering about some things in it, but they're happy with it. They'd always want more. Of course, you always want more. So yeah, and that's going to come straight away. So I don't think there's going to be a problem there. What about lots of the ex-members who are disillusioned about what the Labour Party has turned into? Can see Starmer winning with a turnout just above 50% turnout. Talk about lack of mandate. No, this is absolute bollocks. There aren't lots of people like that. There's a few people that are amplified by certain. Or when we talk about like the fact that the mainstream media mostly amplifies the conservative messages, there are media that are certainly not mainstream media that amplify that hard left message as well. That's all it is. There's hardly any. Boggle. It's a few people. I mean, there was a pissing at, like, there was an event the last week or something to bash Starmer and praise the almighty Jeremy Corbyn. There's hardly anyone there. There's hardly anyone there. The only time they ever look like a significant group is when there's like a big event planned and they all get to one place. No one. David, £2 super chat. Thank you. Farage pushes to be next Tory leader. Well, he can't be. There was talk yesterday that a load of Tories would say, "Oh, we'd make Nigel Farage our leader." Well, two things. First of all, he's not a party member, nor is he an MP, and certainly not a Tory MP. Second of all, Nigel Farage 100% does not want to be Tory leader. Actually, maybe he wouldn't mind in opposition. He wouldn't want to be prime minister because then he'd be responsible. Nigel Farage, there are some Brexiteers who are complete idiots, right? Absolute tools. Nigel Farage is not one of them. Nigel Farage is not an idiot. He knows full well, he knows he's a grifter. Don't get me wrong. A lot of like his xenophobia is genuine. He really is. He's like the anti-immigration Brexiteer. He doesn't really have much of an opinion on economic matters. From that point of view, he's a shill. In terms of the economic side of Brexit and conservatism, he knows he's a grifter. He knows he's a shill. He knows he's acting in the interests of others. He's self-aware enough for that. And he's also self-aware enough to know that if he were to be in charge of the government, that he wouldn't make things better, that his ideas wouldn't work. He knows that. And he would crash and burn. It's much better for him to be the person going, well, if only I were in charge, it'd be brilliant, and never actually being in charge. Because Nigel Farage, do you know what? He probably could have become prime minister. If he'd have joined the Conservative Party after raising his profile, and certainly after the referendum, if he decided, I'm going to join the Conservative Party and become an MP, and he could actually have been in with a shout of having replaced Boris Johnson, say, instead of Rishi Sunak and Liz Truss. That was possible. That was plausible. He would have no reason to do that. He's not stupid enough to do that. Liz Truss is stupid enough to do that, not him. Peter's saying Nigel Farage does not want to be responsible. He wants to be irresponsible. Yeah. He wants to be the person that says, well, they should have done it like this, shouldn't they? They should have done it like this. And I'll tell you how I know he's self-aware, because I've never met him. It's like if you follow his patter ever since we left, he was always sort of saying that the government should do things that he knows they would never do. That way he could always come out later and say, well, I said they should do this and they didn't. He knew there was no danger of them actually doing the crazy things he said they should do. But there we go. Farage could be the next Tory leader and still not have a chance to ever be in charge of the country. I mean, he won't be because he's not joining the party, but yeah, whoever wins, whoever replaces Rishi Sunak after the election is not going to be prime minister. In fact, whoever wins after the next general election, do you know what? I think there's a decent chance they won't even be the leader come the next general election. I think they're going to pick another Ian Duncan Smith. And I don't know whether it's Suella Braverman or Liz Truss. I don't think even Kemi Badenoch, if she were to win, she would have, she's not lost credibility with the public. So she'd actually have a decent chance. But I don't think she's very effective. So I think she would crash and burn as well. But there we go. But we've come to the end of that one. Haven't quite gone over everything I wanted to do, but never mind. I'm sure it'll all carry on being a bit of a disaster for some. It's a bit of a shame next week because I'm at the conference for 2 days, which means I won't be able to do there'll be videos hopefully on those days, but none like up to date. So hopefully the Labour conference doesn't descend into chaos. Otherwise, I won't be able to report on it. But thanks very much for coming on anyway. Have a very good day, everyone. Don't forget to click the like button and to subscribe to the channel. And yeah, I've put a link in the description below to a couple of things, including that Tory being caught out in lies. I'm pretty sure it was Sophie Ridge. And yes, until next time, I'll see you later.